Okay, if everybody want to make their way to their seats, we'll get started here in just about a minute. Let's see, one more member walking in, two more members walking in. Okay, we got a busy agenda today, so we've got about an hour for our committee meeting. We have 4 bills, so keep that in mind today. So members, come find your seat, and we'll call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Alvarado.
Here.
Senator Harper Angel. Senator McDaniel. Senator McGarvey. Senator Schroeder.
Here.
Senator Southworth. Senator Storm.
Here.
Senator Thayer.
Here.
Senator Wheeler. Senator Nemeth.
Present in the room.
Senator Mills.
I'm here, and we have a quorum, so we're duly constituted to do business. We're going to bounce around our agenda a little bit, gentlemen, ladies. First on the item on our agenda is Senate Bill 88, Senator Givens' bill. He's in the back. There he is. Senator Givens, come to the table and introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Chairman Mills, thank you for the opportunity and the invitation to be in front of your committee, and thanks to each of you serving on this committee. We do have in front of us Senate Bill 88, something that you're familiar with and have seen, and staff late yesterday afternoon, as we were doing one final bill review, found a technical correction, what I refer to as a technical correction, that is available to us as a sub, Mr. Chairman, if you would consider entertaining that.
Sure.
sub.
Is there a motion on the sub? Motion. Is there a second? All in favor say aye. Okay, the sub is in front of us. Thank you.
I think the staff is going to pass that out, and I can very easily direct you to what the sub does. If you look on the printed copy that you have of Senate Bill 88, it strikes the language on lines 9 and 10, the language that says, during which time the General Assembly shall act on appropriations, legislation, and resolutions. It strikes that language to make the language conform with the language in paragraph 1, effectively not restricting the General Assembly to solely appropriations, legislation, and resolutions. Now, backing up from that, we have the sub in front of us. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, what this piece of legislation does, as you recall from last year, this is the enabling legislation that's companion to what was last year's House Bill 4, the constitutional amendment to permit the General Assembly the ability through joint proclamation to come into session to meet with immediate concerns. I said last year, and I'll say again this year, in my time during the General Assembly, which will soon be 13 years, this may be the most impactful piece of legislation that I could ever have been a part of. Not solely Senate Bill 88 by itself, but the combination of House Bill 4, that constitutional amendment, and this enabling legislation. The reason I use those words, and I'm typically not one to use expressions like that without reason and merit, the reason I use those words is so many of the pieces of legislation that we worked on last session, and again this session, around limiting the governor's emergency authority could have been addressed if we had the ability to come in through joint proclamation in special session. The writers of our Constitution obviously felt like this was going to be a power that at that time, with an executive-centric leadership model, we didn't really need. The people, the citizens of the Commonwealth weren't viewed to need access to their legislative body to come in and respond on a shorter notice than what obviously back then was an annual session, an every other year session. This certainly, in my mind, strikes the balance of us maintaining our roles as citizen legislators, being responsive to the needs of our citizens, and having the ability to act when our constituents call for us to come into session and act. With that, I'll be glad to entertain any questions.
Very good. Any questions? Senator Southworth has a question for Senator Givens.
Thank you. I just want to get a little better handle on this idea of having the bills, and I'm on page 1, section 5, at the bottom, page 1, the idea of having the bills rolling over. Because as I read this and as I understand the constitutional amendment, a joint proclamation is kind of the same idea as we think of calling for a special session. What are we here for? Why a special reason? Why can't this wait, in Senator Thayer's words, 9 more months? And obviously it's going to be for a reason, right? So why would it be for a special reason that has just come up? We can't wait 9 more months, but yet it's a bill that had already been filed in a previous session.
Senator Southworth, great question, and you and I had a bit of this conversation just moments ago, and I referenced back to House Bill 4 of last year. The language around House Bill 4, and I'm going to read this, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the committee, because it's a little bit of an insight into the workings of why we would be back.
Sure.
The language says, in addition to a regular session, the General Assembly may be convened by joint proclamation of the President of the Senate and Speaker of the House of Representatives for no more than 12 legislative days annually, during which the General Assembly may recess from time to time as it determines necessary. It doesn't say anything with regard to, nor does this constitutional amendment that we passed last session change or limit the governor's ability to call us in for a specific matter. Senator Southworth, specific to your question, models of other state legislators often will have bills that stay alive for the course of the calendar year. As I shared with you moments ago, if it's good policy and it's gotten to a place where it just wasn't, the need wasn't felt to finish the journey, or the time was limited and it didn't finish the journey, in my opinion, if it's good policy and we have something there that's made it through one body and is in the other chamber, or potentially made it through one body and is on the verge of passage, as this actually was last year. This piece of legislation made it through the Senate, made it out of House committee, had 2 readings, and was on the floor for a vote the last day. From a taxpayer perspective, I don't think we need to come back and spend 5 days to finish something that was already that far along on the path, if we could do it in 1 day. Now, many of you here, especially Leader Thayer, know my opposition to 1-day sessions. The beauty of this is if it's been through the process and it's had 3, 4, almost 5 days, I can reconcile that it's been through the body in 3 readings in both chambers, and would feel better about that in those circumstances. So that's the logic.
Thank you.
Senator McDaniel has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just for clarity, President Gibbons, this is just enabling legislation. Should the constitutional amendment fail, this is irrelevant anyway.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Thayer has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and maybe to make Senator Southworth feel better, I was just going through a stack of notes from the last session, and there were a lot of bills there at the end that got almost through, and just at the end, things were really, really crazy last session with COVID and all the things we were dealing with. And so there were bills that were on the precipice of passing the Senate that had already come through the House, and there were bills on the precipice of passing the House that didn't pass the Senate. All, they had their readings, and Leader Rudy and I were going through multiple lists, going into the war room, deciding what we were going to do, what we weren't going to do, what we had the capacity to do, what we didn't. And this was one of those bills that was on that list that didn't make it through, but nearly did. But we knew we had time to come back and do it this session because the constitutional amendment isn't on the ballot until this fall. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions for Senator Gibbons?
Mr. Chairman,
We have a motion on the bill from Senator Alvarado. Is there a second? Second from Senator Nemes. And Senator Gibbons, would you like to make a comment?
no, sir.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Alvarado.
Aye.
Senator Harper Angel. Senator McDaniel.
Cast my vote and explain.
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to vote aye, knowing that it's enabling legislation. And as I've thought through the course of this, and I voted for the constitutional amendment last time because I think that people have kind of demanded that based off of the governor's actions previously, but I don't think the constitutional amendment's a good idea. I think this is a march towards a full-time General Assembly that will get paid to be a part-time General Assembly, and we are opening doors that we don't necessarily want to open. But in the event it goes through, I think this is a good way to handle it. And if that is the will of the people, then that's what we should react to, and that's what we should be prepared to do. So I'll vote aye, Mr. Chairman.
Senator McGarvey. Senator Nemus.
Aye.
Senator Schroeder.
Aye.
Senator Southworth.
Explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you may.
I believe I'm going to vote aye right now, and I don't like the underlying amendment language, and I understand, of course, the will of the people is what's important, but the will of the legislature is what hands them the up or down question. The up or down question has not been well written. And so, as much as I do not like the idea of having everything stay status quo, because there's a need sometimes, I don't feel like the option they're going to have, it's going to be two bad choices this fall for our constituents. And I've talked to a number of constituents about that, and that's one thing I would like to see this body work on cleaning up this year, so they have a better ballot question. But should the ballot question go through as is, standing where we are right now, December 31st is the end of the session with no constraints, and that is a huge problem. The only thing that stands between that happening and where we stand now is this bill, which at least temporarily, until we change it next time, sticks with the March 30th and April 15th and tries to cut down on the number of straggler days that could happen at any point under the new proposed constitution. It's the only reason I would vote for this. But I am going to work on some of this cleanup language that I've talked with a sponsor about, and hopefully we can maybe get at least a few of the doodads cleaned up as best we can. But I would ask everybody to consider better language on House Bill 4 from last year as well. Thank you.
Senator Storm.
Aye.
Senator Thayer.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to vote and explain.
Yes, you may.
I'm going to vote aye. And I just want to remind everybody why we are here today and even discussing this. It was because in June and July of 2020, when we were in the middle of mass mandates and shutdowns and lockdowns, and the state police citing people for going to church on Easter Sunday, the people of this Commonwealth were losing their minds to every member of this body about, you guys need to do something to reel in this out of control governor. And it was a civics lesson, a constitutional civics lesson for the people of the Commonwealth to understand that we're a part-time citizen legislature that can't call itself in to special session. Now, it took actions of the General Assembly a year ago during the regular session, followed by a much delayed but 7-0 decision by the Supreme Court last year that brought us into a special session finally in September of 2021. Way past 15 days to flatten the curve. Here we are almost 2 years in. And way past the time when people were absolutely losing their minds because the elected branch of government, most accountable to the people, could not do anything to reel in what they felt was an out-of-control governor. And that is why we are here today, because the people demanded we do something. That's why we have a constitutional amendment on the ballot this fall, to see if they want to allow that to happen. And that's why Senator Givens has brought this enabling language. So, I mean, I could pontificate on this all day, Mr. Chairman, but I'm just going to leave it at that and vote aye.
Thank you.
Senator Wheeler.
Aye.
Senator Mills.
I vote aye. And Senator McGarvey walked in. Would you like to cast a vote?
Looking at this, is the committee sub. Is that correct, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
it is.
As I review the committee sub, I vote pass right now.
Thank you. Very good. Is approved.
9.
Okay. Senate Bill 88 is approved 9-1 and 1 pass, and it will be reported favorably to the Senate. Senator Givens, thank you so much.
Chairman, thank you. Members of the committee, thank you for your votes and support.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we're going to call Senator Wilson is here, and he has a guest if he can come to the table. This is Senate Bill 64. Introduce yourself and your guest, and you can. The floor is yours. Guests.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a couple of guests that are with me today. I first have from the City of Bowling Green, the Human Resources Director, Aaron Halsey. And also with me from the Kentucky League of Cities, very familiar face, is Brianna Carroll. And so thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, being able to testify on Senate Bill 64, bringing this before you today, which in fact it is a very important bill to protect those who protect our communities, our first responders. And this has become quite evident, especially in light of the tornadoes that hit Kentucky. I know over in western Kentucky and Bowling Green, never seen that level of devastation. But let me say that our police departments, fire departments, emergency management, and emergency services that we have that respond in these issues truly are exposed to a lot of things that cause what we see as trauma, post-traumatic stress, just like if you were in warfare. And I was exposed to this many years ago as serving as a police chaplain, and that was when I was living in Los Angeles, serving with the Sheriff's Department. I can tell you this, that I just can't imagine some of the things that they view and then have to go home every day and be a father and a husband and live normal lives within the community. The dispatchers that are on the phones dealing with these stressful issues and things that they go through, the emergency medical services, things that people see, firemen, all of this, to me, is something that is much needed within these departments themselves. During the interim, there was testimony detailing this trauma, and in many cases, the post-traumatic stress disorder so many individuals often face during their work in these essential services. And so I want to give our guest a time to, share about this bill too as well. But I'd like to say that the Kentucky League of Cities, Fraternal Order of Police are collaborating on best practices language to be added to this bill, and it will be added in the House. And so first of all, you're going to hear from the City of Bowling Green. Well, let me say, you will hear from the City of Bowling Green Human Resources Director, Aaron Halsey, but she can tell you about that situation facing in my district when it hit home, especially during the deadly tornadoes. But first, Brianna Carroll from the Kentucky League of Cities will explain more about the bill, how it works, and why it's important to our local governments.
Thank you, Chairman Mills and members of the committee. I am Brianna Carroll, Director of Public Affairs for the Kentucky League of Cities. Senate Bill 4 simply creates confidentiality protections.
64.
Senate Bill 64, what did I say?
Yeah, Senate Bill 4.
Senate Bill 4. Senate Bill 64 simply creates confidentiality protections for first responders involved in peer counseling programs in our local communities. Public safety employees, including our police, fire, EMS, and our telecommunicators, are frequently exposed to emotionally traumatic experiences at work. While there are protections for our firefighters through the Fire Commission for the personnel who participate in their program, and those who participate in the programs through the Department of Criminal Justice training, there are not the same safeguards in place for those who participate at the local level. Offering our first responders counseling opportunities and a way to deal with the issues is important for our city officials. Providing it at the local level in their community with the people they know and can relate to may be better for some people. We want to make sure that those who choose such an option do not inadvertently give up confidentiality. Senate Bill 64 could potentially benefit tens of thousands of Kentuckians. There are 8,000 law enforcement officers and 12,000 firefighters in Kentucky. Our cities employ 600 EMS and more than 300 dispatchers. Specialty ambulance districts have nearly 900 EMS personnel, and our cities want to take care of these people both physically and mentally. Senate Bill 64 helps ensure they can do so without fear of personal information becoming public knowledge. Communications shared during those peer counseling programs would remain confidential and are not subject to open records except for the following situations: an explicit threat of suicide, threat to a clearly identified or reasonably identifiable victim, information on the abuse or neglect of a child, an adult, or a vulnerable person, admission of criminal conduct, information required by law to be disclosed, and also providing confidential peer support counseling helps communities recruit and retain the quality law enforcement officers, firefighters, EMS, and dispatch staff. We want to ensure that we are there to support our staff. Bowling Green Human Resource Director Erin Holsey can describe for you the challenges in her city that they have faced in attempting to create such a program and why they think it is so important.
Thank you so much for allowing me to come today. Thank you, Senator Wilson, for your support of Senate Bill 64. The journey to start a peer support program in Bowling Green started a few years ago. The fire department started asking for more mental health resources after they heard the news that retired Assistant Chief Chip Terry of the Covington Fire Department died by suicide. Terry suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder from his career in the fire service. To honor Chief Terry and to move mental health programs forward in Kentucky, the state passed Statute 95A 292 in May of 2019 to create a mental health wellness fund for firefighters. It also provides the privilege of disclosure in any civil and criminal proceedings. With the burden of loss of Assistant Chief Terry and the new sponsored program and confidentiality protections, I started working towards a peer support program with the city of Bowling Green. As the Director of Human Resources, I support all of the departments, and I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to make sure that none of our peer supporters or our first responders were left behind. In August of 2020, the city of Bowling Green promoted a new police chief, and he made it a top priority to expand mental health programs to the police department, which includes communications dispatch. Together with the fire chief, we committed to creating a peer support program for our first responders with the city of Bowling Green. Over the next 6 months, we started meeting with organizations who would come in and train our first responders. One of the organizations wanted to ensure, before they trained our group, that the state of Kentucky offered confidentiality protections. I could only confirm that the state protected firefighters. We decided it was more important to wait for these protections than to proceed without them. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what peer support is and why it's so important. I learned very quickly that being a first responder is a truly unique job. The events that police officers and firefighters experience on the job are abnormal to the average person. The events they experience are horrific and traumatic. The U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs describes a traumatic event as one that is shocking and dangerous. They go on to say that 60% of men and 50% of women will experience one traumatic event in their life on average. However, a police officer or a firefighter will experience a traumatic event on a regular basis throughout their career, potentially more than one in a single shift. Because of this dramatic difference from the general population, most mental health professionals do not have the capability to treat first responders. Without the experience and firsthand knowledge of what their life is like, most first responders fail to connect with well-meaning mental health professionals that are used to working with the general population. First responders tell us stories of talking with mental health professionals that many become emotional themselves during therapy, and they simply cannot imagine or empathize with the trauma that the first responders experience on a regular basis. Finding a mental health professional with first responder experience is not common. We do not have one in Bowling Green. We do have access to a fantastic one in Lexington, Dr. Trevor Wilkins. He runs Thin Line Counseling. But due to the geographic distance, the meetings have to be virtual, and due to his busy schedule, people have to wait 2 to 4 weeks to get an appointment with him. In preparing for today, I asked Dr. Wilkins about peer support programs. He said, "I wholeheartedly believe that peer support should be the first line of defense in critical incidents and mental health struggles for members of the public safety community. Many struggling with mental health challenges just need to know they are not alone and there's nothing wrong with them, and that is why peer support works." When talking with peer supporters and mental health professionals about first responders, they often refer to the big lie, which is what police officers and firefighters tell themselves. The big lie is that they have to be strong all the time, and any sign of weakness might, by peers or supervisors, might be a sign that they cannot do their job. Fear of having their badge taken away or being pulled off the truck will prevent a police officer or firefighter from seeking help if they don't have the confidence that their conversations are protected and confidential. Any perceived threat of a breach of this confidence will prevent someone from reaching out. That is why I am here today. I am asking you to not only support our first responders in creating peer support programs statewide, but also to give them the confidence that they can talk to each other without fear that their conversations will be revealed in civil or criminal proceedings. These protections will ensure that we set up policies to keep these conversations protected from annual evaluations, disciplinary actions, promotional considerations, and internal investigations. Peer support provides education and resources to first responders as immediately as they need it. There's no need to make an appointment, no need to worry if the person's going to understand what they are going through. Done correctly, these conversations happen anonymously. There's no rank structure in peer support. Having a peer support program transforms the culture and health of a department to keep first responders healthy on the job and healthy into retirement. I'm disappointed to tell you that on December 11th, 2021, the city of Bowling Green did not have a plan in place to support our first responders after the horrific tornadoes that went through our city. I am grateful that we were on a path towards a program, which means I did have connections to mental health professionals, peer support coordinators from other agencies, and organizations with expertise in critical incident stress response. We did the very best that we could, but I never want our police officers, dispatchers, and firefighters to go through another critical incident like that without a plan and a program in place to help each other. Thank you for your support of our local heroes, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Very good. Is there a motion on the bill?
Mr. Chairman,
We have a comment from Senator Thayer.
this is a really good bill. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Senator Wilson and I spent a long time talking about it earlier this week. So I'd like to make a motion that Senate Bill 64 be reported favorably. Motion same shall pass.
Do we have a second? We have a second from Senator Alvarado. Senator Southworth, you have a question real quick.
Yes, I was looking at, well, thank you for this. I think this is a lot of things you said are spot on. I was looking at an issue relating to the rules of evidence, and I'm wondering, are we going to have any issues in keeping this privilege in a courtroom? I'm a little confused on the legalities of the General Assembly making rules of evidence, and I want to find out who's looked at that.
Short response.
I don't think there's an issue. It's the same language that is passed for the Department of Criminal Justice Training as well as the Fire Commission. It's the exact same language.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Alvarado.
Aye.
Senator Harper Angel. Senator McDaniel. Senator McGarvey.
Cast my vote and explain, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you may, sir.
Thank you. I cast an aye vote for committee today to move this bill along. I understand we need help. I do have some reservations about the absolute bar in this language right now, and hope that we can continue to work on that just a little bit to make sure that everyone is protected in all circumstances as we move this bill to the floor. Thank you.
Senator Nemes.
Aye.
Senator Schroeder. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Storm.
Aye.
Senator Thayer.
Aye.
Senator Wheeler. Senator Mills.
I vote aye. 11-0. Senate Bill 64 passes or is approved 11-0 and will be reported favorably to the Senate. Thank you so much, Senator Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Okay, next on the agenda is Senate Bill 32, our pension reform bill. Real quick, if Senator Higdon and his guest, Mr. Craycraft, can come forward. We're on a tight schedule, gentlemen, so please be advised. Thank you. If you can introduce yourself and give us a quick overview of Senate Bill 32, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Jimmy Higdon, State Senator, and I have with me Bo Craycraft with the Judicial Retirement Fund. The PPOB, which many of you are familiar with, we address issues during the interim, and this was on the list of legislation that we recommended to be heard this session. And so Senate Bill 32, what it does with the judicial reform retirement plan is bring it up to date with some of the changes we've already made to KPPA and so if you look at the main thing with any retirement bills are actuarial analysis, and if you look at the actuarial analysis, you'll find that one of the things that we've Senator Thayer's bill back in 2013 when we created PPOB, we had a lot of issues that took place prior to that we passed bills that had an analysis, but they said it was indeterminable what it would cost us. And indeterminable is not a status quo. We should never take anything that you can't determine what the cost will be, and that's why we have actuarial analysis. But the first 3 pages of this bill are primarily what the bill is all about. The following pages are all cleanup for the language that was inserted with Senate Bill 151 that was found unconstitutional several years ago. So if you look through past page 3, all that language that's struck is language from 151. And so Section 1 of this, Senate Bill 32, starting with the 2023 actuarial evaluation, the unfunded actuarial accrued liability will be amortized over a 20-year closed period. If there's a surplus, it'd be amortized over a 20-year open period. Section 2, administrative expenses shall be contained in a biennial budget request, and sections 3 through 10 deal with cleanup. And also, it changes this to a level dollar payroll growth, which is, as we all know, is a good thing. If you look on the front page of the actuarial analysis, you see check there. It makes this system more sound. And I think that's what you're looking for. Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to entertain any questions.
Questions or motion? We have a motion on the bill from Senator Wheeler. Have a second from Senator Thayer. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Alvarado.
Aye.
Senator Harper Angel. Senator McDaniel. Senator McGarvey. Senator Nemes.
Aye.
Senator Schroeder. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Storm.
Aye.
Senator Thayer.
Aye.
Senator Wheeler. Senator Mills.
I vote aye. Senate Bill 32 is approved 11-0 and will be reported favorably to the Senate. Thank you, Senator Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. Our final item on the agenda is Senate Bill 66. It's sponsored by Senator Alvarado. He's at the table and he has a couple of guests. So, Senator Alvarado, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm pleased to testify today to ask for your consideration on Senate Bill 66. This past interim, I had the pleasure to meet a constituent by the name of Stacy Burnett, who's with us here today. Ms. Burnett's a family practice nurse practitioner who reached out for a meeting to consider drafting some legislation with regards to educational requirements for our coroners. And her story is a bit of a sad one and tragic, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and provide that story here today.
Hi, I'm Stacy Burnett. Thank you for listening to our story and considering this bill. This is my husband, John Burnett. So I'll just show you quickly. This was my son, Nathan Burnett. He was a senior at Henry Clay High School and was about to graduate. On March 29th, he left for spring break with his best friend's family to go snowboarding in Park City, Utah of this past year. On March 30th, it was a beautiful, unusually warm day here in Kentucky. I'd taken my youngest son to Burnham Forest. My middle son had a baseball practice. John was at work. We all came home for dinner, and around 7 at night, John was taking the boys to see a Henry Clay, or UK, baseball game. And he was about 3/4 of the way out of the driveway when a coroner's van pulled up in front of our house. Sorry, I'm nervous. So I could see John's expression, which was fear and shock, and he started to pull back into the driveway. And our two boys got out of the car. And by the time the coroner had gotten out of the van and came up to the house, John had come to meet me. And immediately we just started asking, is he dead? Is he dead? And the coroner said, I have no details, you need to call Utah. And so he had this little piece of paper and his business card. And it's the Summit County Sheriff in Utah. And it says John and Sherry Barnett, which were John and Stacy Burnett, and Nathan. And again, we kept saying, is he dead? Is he dead? And the coroner said, I have no details, you have to call Utah. And he just walked away. So he left me screaming on the front lawn, my two younger children watching, and John had to compose himself and call Utah. When we got in touch with the sheriff in Utah, he was appalled and shocked that we had no details, that we didn't know if he was dead, which we presumed. I mean, it's a coroner. We didn't know if it was a car accident, if the whole family he was with had died, if he'd gotten to the hospital. We didn't know anything. So the sheriff made us both get on the phone and listen and verbalize that we understood. If it had been 2 minutes later, I would have been home completely alone when the coroner showed up at my house. And if nobody was there, I don't doubt that he would have just stuck this on our door with his business card, because he didn't have a phone number for us on here. So when something so terrible or so great in your life happens, whether it be the birth of your child or a death of a child, you remember every detail about that day. And it's etched in your mind forever how you find out. And I feel that the way we were informed was cold, impersonal, and professional. It caused a lot of extra trauma for my two younger sons. And I feel like the way we were notified robbed the acknowledgement of the life and importance that our son meant to us. So I just don't want any other families to be notified this way. We want just some basic standards, which are very basic. Basically, that you have to be notified in person, that they need to have details and be able to tell you what happened, that they stay with you until you can contact somebody, but we just don't want any other families to go through what we went through.
Unfortunately, members of the committee, the Burnett story is not unique. On the recent past, we also heard of a death notification that occurred in another Kentucky county where the decedent's family was not present when the coroner went to their residence, so the information was pinned to their front door. And that story, I think, made the news after it occurred. I realize that we can't legislate compassion or empathy or basic human kindness or decency. I also realize that our coroners are elected officials that have to answer for their actions. However, I believe it is important that we provide our coroners every educational opportunity to know how to deliver the worst news a family may ever hear in their lifetime. I reached out to my Clark County coroner, Robert Gayhart, and asked for his input on how this could be accomplished, and Senate Bill 66 is a product of that work. I also got a phone call from the Coroners Association with some requested changes, and those are before you in a substitute to the bill. At this time, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to adopt that sub.
Second.
There's motion and second for the committee sub. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The committee sub is before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The bill basically adds language to the coroner training that within 3 years of assuming office, a coroner must complete a course of at least 4 hours provided by DOCJT that includes instruction on the grieving process and best practices for providing a notice of death to next of kin. If a coroner has already completed the course, they're not required to retake it. And also, there's language in the bill regarding the actual notification process. The decedent's next of kin is out of their jurisdiction, then the coroner only needs to notify the coroner or the official in that jurisdiction. If the decedent's next of kin, however, is in their jurisdiction, then they need to notify emergency medical personnel that a notification is going to take place and confirm that they can respond. For the notification, they need to arrange for another person to accompany them, either a deputy coroner, law enforcement, clergy member, grief counselor, or another respected member of the community to help. They have to provide the notification orally and in a respectful manner, assist the next of kin in contacting a family or friend if they're alone, provide information regarding the handling of the remains, contact information for the coroner's office, and information for grief counseling, and they also should conduct a follow-up communication within 48 hours. Some of the changes you see in the sub is we went from 8 hours to 4 hours of education. That was on request from the Coroners Association. And also the notification process. The original bill had language that it would tell an EMS or a medical person, they would have to tell them where they were going. And if that happened, they were worried that might get out into social media before they had a chance to let the next of kin know. So we made sure that we cleaned that up to tighten it where that couldn't be the case, but that if a medical problem occurred after they notified someone, that they would be able to contact them and let them know where they're at.
Motion on the bill.
We have a motion from Senator Thayer, a second from Senator Wheeler. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Alvarado.
Aye.
Senator Harper Angel.
I'd like to explain my aye vote and
Yes.
ask a question, if I might, Mr. Chair.
Yes, you may. Question and then explanation.
There's no grandfathering in of current coroners, is there? Will everybody take this training?
Thank you for that question. As I explained, if they've already taken the course, then there's no need to take it again if they've already taken it. It's an option for current coroners, but unfortunately, a lot of the coroners don't choose this. They choose for the things to help with financial issues in their office. So there's no grandfathering. If they haven't taken the course before, they're going to have to.
But the course is new, correct?
Well, I think some of that's already provided in some of their initial training for the coroner's office, but it's going to be a 4-hour course. So there's already a PowerPoint that's provided by the Coroners Association. We just want to make sure that this is being provided and for everybody that's coming in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I vote aye.
Senator McDaniel. Senator McGarvey.
Cast my vote and explain, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you may.
Cast an aye vote. I just want to thank you all. I know how hard it is to testify about personal matters, and for you all to have the courage to do this and to turn your pain into action and to prevent other people from going through it, you should be commended. Thank you.
Senator Nemus.
Aye.
Senator Schroeder.
Mr. Chair, explain my aye vote.
Yes, you may.
I vote aye, and Senator Alvarado, thank you for bringing this bill. Thank you to the witnesses for testifying today. I know I've talking to you, there's always the concern, especially with deputy coroners, how hard it is to find deputy coroners. However, I think you've done a good job. I think this is pretty reasonable, not way too long, and having constituents who somewhat similar stories, just hearing firsthand, it's definitely a need in our Commonwealth. So thank you.
Senator Southworth.
Yes.
Senator Storm.
Aye.
Senator Thayer.
Aye.
Senator Wheeler.
Aye.
Senator Mills.
I vote aye, and Senate Bill 66 passes or is approved 11-0. And thank you to the Burnett's for your testimony and Senator Alvarado today.
Thank you.
If there are not any other business before the committee, we stand adjourned.